Good morning, everyone. You know, I realized that I did a bunch of Coffee with Dawni videos this week with my cute little cup that's got my jelly toast on it, but something's missing. Hello? I have an empty chair here. Where's my peanut butter?
Is that my cue?
That's your cue. Are you my peanut butter?
Yes, I'm your peanut butter.
Let's see your cup. Peanut butter and jelly. Thank you so much to Heather for these wonderful cups. We love this gift. So fun for us to drink out of these.
Even though mine's iced, I'm cheating.
Did you see what it says on the inside?
Cute.
What does it say?
It says you complete me.
I do? Oh my gosh.
Anyway, just kidding. So, today we are going to be talking about the 10%. Have you mentioned the 10% before?
You know what? I was trying to remember that. I may have. But let's address it like I haven't, in case I haven't.
Okay. So, we kind of have our own little lingo that we use for a lot of things, our own terms. And one of those is our 10%. Like we each have this 10% where it's just this little bit of us that is like constantly undermining things, constantly sabotaging, and almost like this, it's rogue, right?
Yes,
That's
it's
what
the
it is.
rogue 10%.
It's the rogue 10% of us, where 90% of us is headed toward this certain goal or purpose and has these certain desires, and we spend 90% of our time pursuing that. But then this other little 10% is not only out of place, it is opposite and actually goes against the rest.
Yeah, it's off the reservation, right? It's really doing its own thing to the point where that 10% has a different agenda. It's playing a different game than the rest of you. So as you know, I constantly teach this concept of having a master plan, having a direction that you're headed. You know, what are your values? What are your priorities? Where is it that you're going? And although 90% of you may be on board for that, if 100% of you was on board with that, you would just be going, consistently going. The rogue 10% is the piece of you that is that one step back after you've made that 2 steps forward, because it doesn't want to go towards your master plan.
And this is where, I don't know if you guys have ever, I've done it myself, but just to make it more palatable, we'll talk about it being someone else's problem for a minute. I don't know if you've ever known someone that you go to, they say, nobody ever messages me or calls me or invites me to things, and then you invite them to something and they don't respond, or they don't want to go, they don't feel like it, then that's their 10% in action, right? Because they're probably really feeling like left out or like they don't have friends, but then that 10% actually stops them from being included or having friends. And so essentially, if our true self were to get what we truly want, that 10% would be deprived, right? So when the 10% does its thing and we let it determine our actions, then the rest of us is deprived. So this is essentially the definition of internal conflict. We want, like we say, well, I want 2 different things. Maybe you are split, right? Maybe we are actually split in our actual sense of self, even more so than just what we want.
I always think of the scripture here, and yes, I use scriptures in my teaching all the time. That's my background, right? I have that religious background where I studied scriptures from the time I was very young. And one of my favorite scriptures is, no man can serve 2 masters. So if we have a split, which most of us do, right? If not all of us, I would say there are probably a handful of people around the world that are completely whole in their intentions. But for most of us, we have this split, and it's kind of like the wounded 10%. So this is often the piece of you, and I did talk a little bit about this when I did that series on the mind, right? But that piece of you that is maybe stunted. I mean, what do you think usually what is that 10% usually going after? What kind of thing?
Well, that's the thing is some people refer to the 10% as the ego, and it can kind of be used interchangeably, but we like the 10% because it includes in the name of it that it's just this small bit of us. It's not our true self or anything. It's just this weird little rogue 10%. So both in referring to the ego and the 10%, it's often talked about as if it's just bad and we need to get rid of it. And it's just like, oh, I did this thing that hurt my overall purpose in life or led me further from what I want. And that was just stupid of me. So that was just dumb. I must be dumb. I must be an idiot.
Or I must be crazy.
But if you look closer, there's that 10% piece of us is using our power, right? It's like a little sort of, like a little leech using our power for its own objectives. But it's not like that rogue 10% is going to, like, I really want to be an artist, but that 10% just keeps doing like quantum mathematics, no matter how much I don't want to. No, it's using skills and attributes that we already have, and it's actually keeping those outside the realm of our conscious control. And it's often attributes that we need for our real purpose. So to kind of simplify all that with a little example is when I used to smoke, I was obviously addicted, and every couple hours I would just need to go smoke. And then with my larger purposes in life, with business or even hobbies or skills that I was working on, I just would fizzle out. I wouldn't be consistent. And so I was telling myself, I'm not good at consistency. And then one day I realized, pretty damn consistent when it comes to smoking, right? So wait, why am I so consistent? Every couple hours, basically on the dot, I can remember to smoke and I act on it and everything. So clearly I'm capable of consistency.
But it's hijacked.
By the 10%.
Yes. Okay, that's a perfect example of that. What I've noticed about mine and about, many of my clients is that there seems to be a certain flavor to that piece of us. Number one, it seems to almost always come from a young part of ourselves. Number two, its agenda is usually subconscious and something we have a difficult time owning. And number three, it does have a deeper desire to it, but the way that it goes about it is it's an imitation of that desire. So I'm going to give you an example of this. This is, okay, so my 10% for a long time was this craving I had for attention, right? And I've talked about this before. And so what I actually wanted at the core of my being, what was actually missing was intimacy. But because this piece was not conscious and because it was very young, it didn't even know how to get that. So it would get this sort of, like, oh, I got to be really cute. I'm going to show some cleavage. I'm going to be flirty. I'm going to get this attention. It's not intimacy. It's actually the imitation of intimacy. But I'm going to sabotage whatever I have to in the rest of my life to get this, because it's the piece of us that doesn't believe we can actually have the thing we want. It's the piece of us that's constantly seeking the imitation of what we really want. So that is no longer my 10%. I have a whole different one, but that was the one that ran my life and really sabotaged me for many years. So what about with you? What do you see for yourself about your 10%?
Well, yeah, I no longer smoke. And one of the things with that is just like you're saying. For me, it was, I was conscious of it the whole time. I was like, it's just like to have my own time, right? And to, in my mind, it was essentially categorized as self-care. Mm-hmm. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, damn, I got some wires crossed. Like, if I think poisoning myself is self-care. But when, alternatives would be suggested, like, well, you can take time for yourself. And, you would suggest, like, you could just go outside and enjoy some fresh air and, like, do some breathing. And I was like, no way, that's not going to do the trick. Until there's ambient nicotine outside, then it's not going to work. So anyway, it was a real need. And so now I take care of that need in healthier ways. But for now, my 10%, I would say, is like masked laziness. So it's like, I have this project that I really need to get done and make progress on, but that hard drive's getting kind of full, so I better do an overhaul of all the storage on my whole computer and make an Amazon wish list on expanded storage options. And so I definitely get caught up doing things that maybe need done, but it's not expedient. And I probably have something worse that I can't think of.
Well, so what do you think, though, that you're trying to get from that? Like, what is that stunted part of you trying to get by procrastinating like that?
I think it's just, I have a bit of a fiery spirit when it comes to independence.
There we go.
So and that had to do with smoking as well. But it's like, I just want to do what I feel like doing. And when I feel like doing it, kind of a childlike.
I'll do what I want.
Yeah, I'll do what I want. And
my timing.
Yeah, I'm not hurting anybody. And I need to do this at some point. But it really comes down to, I just feel like doing that more than what I'm supposed to be doing.
So in this case, it's sort of like rebellion being the imitation of autonomy.
Exactly.
So if what Gideon wants is to have that freedom, that sovereignty, and that autonomy, but the way he's going about it is actually leading to less of that because it's prolonging, what we're trying to accomplish, then do you see that? Do you see it's that piece of him? There is a real deep desire and a true desire there for that independence. But when it becomes the imitation and it just gets to be sort of like that oppositional, rebellious, I'll do what I want, I'll do it the way I want, then it doesn't ever get him exactly what he wants.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how much we need to dig into my psyche, but just to kind of show...
it's so much funner. I dig into mine all the time.
Yeah, and mine. No, I'm just kidding. But just to show the cyclical nature that can happen with our 10% if it's not brought to conscious awareness. In my example, it's like, well, I just want to do what I want when I want. Well, what happens when the deadline is getting closer and closer? Now there's a certain amount of time that I have to do it or really let people down and ruin my reputation. And there's like a lot on the line. So then I don't have choice. If I would have done it earlier, then I could do whatever I want. I could relax or anything.
Then you can get the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not showing your peanut butter side.
Oh. Got to show the little peanut butter bread.
So this is the whole point of this, is what we're trying to say is that this piece of us that would sabotage is actually trying to give you the imitation of what you really want.
Well, I didn't quite wrap up the cyclical thing, because then what happens is the pressure builds, right, from the procrastination. And as the pressure builds, that little 10% rebellious part of me gets stronger and stronger because, well, I don't know why I'm feeling all this pressure. I can do whatever I want, like I don't need to do any of this. And so then eventually, like, where does that lead in the long run? It doesn't lead to freedom. Just like how, like, well, I'm an adult, I can smoke if I want. Wait, now I'm addicted. And if we have like a 10-hour plane flight, then I have to like find some patches or gum or like, then I'm not at choice.
Now you're 50 and you're on oxygen.
Exactly.
Even less. Do you see? It entraps us. And I think one of the reasons it's so hard for us to see it is because the deeper desire is valid. Mm-hmm. My desire for intimacy is real. Your desire for autonomy and sovereignty and freedom is very real.
Yeah, there's a valid need even.
It's just that rogue 10% will do it in a stunted, subconscious way and try to bring in the imitation of what's really wanted. So, ton of information, but it's up to you to try to really, really see where this exists in your own life. What is the part of you that seems to be sabotaging? Where do you see this play out in your life? What does that part of you want? See, this is part of the nature of this, me doing videos and you not actually being here with us to talk, is that you've got to do your part of the work over there. So that's what I would ask you to figure out.
And here's a tool to help figure it out. If you're not sure like what exactly is your 10%, then here's what to do. We have a tendency to find like our secondary or, tertiary issue or block and go, well, I really need to like, I don't know, for me, like I need to do more photography or something. And so something's getting in the way of me doing more photography. When really, what's the thing that you need to stop doing or you need to do that you just don't really even want to think about?
Anything but that, right? Anything but that.
Anything but stop smoking. I'll be a really good person. I'll do all the dishes. Like I'll do all of this stuff, but I'm not going to stop smoking. So what's your little pet?
Your precious, I call it. Yeah, they know that.
Exactly.
So yes, look for your precious, and then you're going to start seeing that rogue 10%.
And then look at what valid, real need and desire may be under there.
Because once you see the valid need and you see that what you've been bringing in, at best is an imitation, then you can start to be aware of it, notice when you're doing it, and instead turn to the valid thing and get that need actually met. Mm-hmm. And you can stop sabotaging yourself. You can serve one master instead of two.
Yeah, and you have a video on the master plan.
Yes.
So you can watch that video. We'll link to it. What's your master plan? What's your overall life kind of projection? And then what current things on a day-to-day basis
are blocking
don't
that.
Fit in,
yes.
Are not in alignment with that master plan. And that's where the 10% is hijacking your will.
Love it. Thank you for being here with me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Cheers. May your coffee be strong and your life be blessed. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. It really helps these important messages get out there. If you would like more messages and more videos, I have a membership site for every single weekday. Come check it out, coffeewithdawni.com.